Hi, it's John. Welcome to my channel, EV Intuition, where I'm helping you understand about electric vehicles. Well, I just hit the second anniversary of owning my 2023 Tesla Model Y long range, and I want to share with you the savings that I made in this second year of owning that vehicle. A year ago, I showed you the savings that I did in the first year. We're going to review that and show you what changed in the second year. I think you'll find some interesting items in that data. So let's get started. Before I begin, I want to remind you that if you like the content of my videos, please subscribe to my channel and give me a like. Send me any comments you have also. So we're talking about the second year of owning my Tesla Model Y and the savings that I earned by using a Tesla or an electric vehicle versus a gas vehicle. So that's where I think the bulk of the savings are in owning an EV. And I'll talk to you about other savings when I summarize everything. But we're really talking about the cost of gasoline versus the cost to charge the electric vehicle, and how does that differ? And I use as a comparison my 2011 Toyota RAV4, which is very similar in size to the Tesla Model Y. It's a small SUV. And so I basically look at the mileage that I did on my Tesla Model Y and say, hey, what would be the cost of doing that same mileage using my Toyota RAV4? And that's how I do my comparison. Let's take a look. Now, before I begin, you got to understand that I break down the charging into 4 different areas. First is home charging. As I've said in many of my videos, having a home charger is very key to getting a lot of savings with an electric vehicle, because typically the electricity costs in your home are much cheaper than you can get in public places and much less expensive than what gas costs for getting you the same amount of mileage. So home charging is one category. Another category is public AC charging. That's free. Now, I'm fortunate that I live in a town that has a lot of public chargers. And the interesting thing is that those chargers, the use of those chargers, have been free up until early this year, when what I found out is the New York State grant that supplied the cost of those chargers had expired. And so now they're charging a pretty significant amount of money for charging. I think it's high, but so I don't charge there anymore. But for most of the year, most of this past year, I'd been using those free chargers. Now, there's still a few free chargers around, and I take advantage of them, but there's not as many. And so that is going to probably affect the overall savings a little bit in this past year and more in the future, because of the cost of public AC charging in my area, and meaning I'm not going to have it free as much as I used to. But I still took advantage of that throughout this year quite a bit, as you'll see. The next category is there are public AC chargers that have a fee associated with it, just like my town has. I don't charge at a fee-based public charger unless I need to. Typically, I do it if I'm on the road and I'm near one and it's cheaper than a supercharger. This past year, I did not use any public fee-based AC chargers, as you'll see. And the last category is the DC fast chargers, or superchargers, as Tesla likes to call them. Certainly when I'm on road trips, that's what I use. And the nice thing about Tesla superchargers is they're one of the most available ones around and one of the most least expensive, relatively speaking, compared to other fast chargers. So let's first take a look at the data from after my first year, just to bring you up to date. And I basically summarized it in this sheet. Now, there's a lot of data here. A couple things to point out is really how much mileage that I did in my first year, and that's 17,467. And then I just calculated the cost that I spent on the Tesla charging it to go that distance, and what would be the corresponding cost if I used my gas vehicle. Now I used, and this is important to point out, is the electric rates that I had in my first year was 6 cents per kilowatt hour in my home, which is some of the cheapest in the countries. Your rates will definitely vary from this. And the gas rate last year, or my first year of owning it, around this area averaged roughly around $3.60. So use that in the calculations, and you could see that I saved over $2,000 in my first year of using the Tesla. And if I broke it down by the different charger types, you can see that the most amount of charging that I did was really at my home, but that was followed very closely by public free charging. Like I said, the free charging in my area, I took advantage of that when I went to shopping or restaurants or working out. I could always use a free charger, and I took advantage of that. And then how it compared to superchargers. And then that small little area where I did a public fee-based charger, AC charger there. So that was year one. Now let's take a look at this past year and how it compared. You can see that the total mileage that I went this past year is 13,735, which is a lot less, or a little less, compared to my first year, which I went over 17,000. So I was 4,000 miles less, which really means in the past year I didn't go on as long as road trips that I did in that first year. And you'll see that when you look at, how much supercharger or DC fast charging I use. The other thing I want to point out, and I circled this in green here, is that my electricity rates have bumped up a little bit, and I bumped it to 7 cents per kilowatt hour versus 6 cents per kilowatt hour. So that means the cost of electricity in the second year is more. Now the gas rate, interesting, has decreased. If you looked at the gas rate that I used in my first year, I had the average gas in this area is $3.60. Gas prices have dropped. So it is now cheaper to use gas this past year versus the 2 years ago. So I used $3.20, 40 cents per gallon cheaper, which is going to impact the results. And you can see that the total savings in my second year, both from a mileage, going less mileage, turns out to be just under $1,500, which is still a significant savings. I didn't get to the $2,000 that I did in the first year. I got less savings, but still an amazing amount of savings in comparing the cost of energy that I used to fuel that vehicle. So that's something to keep in mind. Now let's look at, in the second year, the energy that I used in the different categories. You can see that actually the number one category, or the highest percentage of use, was in public free charging this past year. I took advantage of that quite a bit. When I went out into the town, I was charging, and I used that basically 45% of my charging was free, which is amazing. And then followed closely by home charger, which was 40% of my total energy that I used. And you know that I have very inexpensive home chargers. Even though it bumped up from 6 cents per kilowatt hour to 7 cents, that's still very inexpensive electricity. And the last category is supercharger. And I only used 15% of my total energy was supercharger, which was a lot less compared to last year. The first year of owning the Tesla, it was 23%. So you could see that I used superchargers a lot less, meaning I went on not as long of road trips. And that really helped in my savings, along with the fact that I used public chargers. But you got to keep in mind that the cost of gasoline was much more attractive for gas vehicles in the second year versus the first year. In summary, comparing the 2 years of ownership of my Tesla Model Y, you can see that I've gone a total of over 31,000 miles. And between the 2 years, I've saved over $3,500 in the cost of energy. Now, the thing that this thing doesn't show you is the couple other areas that you should keep in mind. Number one, I'm not going to any gas stations to fill my vehicle. So I'm not making an extra trip or going a little further or spending time at a gas station. I pull into my garage, I plug it in, and I'm all set. That's an important point, both from you're probably saving some mileage by not having to go to the gas station, and you're certainly saving time by just going into your garage, and plugging it in. The other thing is no oil changes. I've never done any oil changes because an electric vehicle does not need them. So that's another important area that you're saving time and money on. The third area is I haven't taken my vehicle this past year into the dealership, right? There was nothing wrong with my vehicle. It ran well throughout the season, so I didn't have any maintenance on it, any service, so I didn't even have to take it there. And yet I've got probably at least 10 over-the-air updates from Tesla on improvements, fixes, and enhancements to the capability of the electric vehicle. So, and there was no cost for that. So those are a couple of other things that you got to keep in mind when comparing an electric vehicle to a gas vehicle. But you can see the amount of savings that you can get. And people say electric vehicles are expensive. Maybe when you compare the average cost of a gas vehicle to electric vehicle, but look at the savings that you get on a yearly basis. So I hope you found this information informative. I hope this helps you in your decision if you're looking to buy a new vehicle, to consider electric and see if you can get the savings that I got. So take care. I'll see you next time.